Welcome to the 4020 TV best bits of 2021. Although, in fairness, best bits is probably the wrong term, just bits of the year. I mean, you remember at the end of 2020, we thought, 2021 would be great. Everything's going to be back. We've got a World Cup to look forward to. And, well, Women's Super League was back. That was good. Championship League One return. That was good. Fans were back. That was good. A World Cup didn't quite happen. But as it turns out, and we were angry at the time it got cancelled, it may well be for the best. We'll talk more about the internationals in a bit. If you've watched any of 4020 TV, you'll know that it's been an interesting year as 2021. I didn't get out as much as I would have perhaps done in the past. The Zoom press conference is coming to an end, although, it might be back. And we started the year on Skype as well, because we weren't allowed out of the house. But we did start the year with one of the big stories, although not as big as we imagined at the time, a coaching departure from Castleford. Not that one. We'll come to that in a moment. One other departure we need to mention, and you've mentioned the Women's Super League coming back, and those opening round fixtures, I tell you what, they could be brutal. They in terms of the results, because the way they've fallen, they could be brutal, because we know there are some big clubs in the Women's Super League and some not so big clubs, and all the big clubs aren't playing against each other in the first round, which is interesting. But one big departure on the eve of the season is Lindsay Anfield from Castleford. Led them to 3 of the last 4 finals. League leaders showed last year, 2019. We just forget 2020 happened. Obviously, you can say, well, they got to those finals, but they didn't win any of them. But they were involved in all of them and competed. She's going to be a massive loss for Cass, who obviously have to replace her on the eve of the season, and obviously part of the England coaching staff. So whenever she does feel like she wants to get back in the game, she will certainly have plenty of offers, you would assume, from around the league.
I think the reaction of all of the players that have been under her on social media tell us everything. That clearly there was almost despair from a lot of the big name cast players, saying how much of an influence she's been on their career, how the side reflected her as a person, how much they were going to miss her. I think that's a massive testament to her. I think she probably will keep the England role leading up to the World Cup.
Yes, yeah.
Which is important, because I think when we spoke to Craig Richards, he'd impressed upon us how important she was to that setup, and so close to the players and understanding of their needs. So I think that England's World Cup chances are enhanced by her staying in that role. Yeah, I mean, it'd be very interesting to see how Castleford appoint at such short notice. It's a blow for Cass, clearly, and I hope that there is somebody who is going to take up that role that will have an instant impact in the same way that she has had. It's a tough act to follow, for sure, and I think those close to the women's game felt that it also came as a shock. I don't think anybody saw that coming.
No, I think I remember her speaking after the Challenge Cup final at Bolton in 2019. I think she was almost not surprised at the level of interest, but the amount of, I don't want to say pressure, it's the wrong word, but the level where Women's Super League is and is expected to be compared to perhaps resource and time and money and everything that goes alongside it. We do almost expect the players and coaches to do a lot for very little, if not anything.
Yeah.
To try and put it that way, we're asking them to act professionally and not recompensing them as such, which I think is an issue, which it's a difficult one to broach. I know the BBC on International Women's Day did plenty of things about the gender pay gap in sport, and it's a difficult one because money has to come in from somewhere to pay for professionalism, and it's where that money comes in. But you would hope that clubs will have seen in the last few years there is something that can be done with women's rugby league, that it can be some kind of spectator product, that it might be able to be monetized in the future. And if You can make money, the players can make money, everyone's happy. I don't know how far down the line that is. I don't know how much money that is. I'm not saying any women's players are going to be getting paid $1,000 a week or whatever, but it's still better than nothing.
I think there is an understanding out there now of the value of women's sport, and that value hasn't yet been commercialised. But I think, hopefully when the season does get back, and maybe towards the end of that season when crowds can get back, I think sponsors and partners will see the advantage of tying in the women's game with the men's game, with the wheelchair game. And that's why, this World Cup and the PDRL one that will run alongside it is so important for the sport. It's not just about the exposure on TV. It's about, we played the inclusive card a lot, and we can go out there and prove it. And, Lindsay needs to be a part of that, and the work that she's done needs to be remembered in some material way down at the jungle, and I'm sure they will. But they've got a big decision to make, and I don't know. Would you think that would upset Castleford's preparations, or because they've got to be one of the favourites this year, and haven't had a huge turnover of personnel, and have played so well over the last couple of seasons that we've been allowed to have. I would think that the pressure is on them now to turn that into silverware, and the person who was tasked with doing that is not going to be part of their setup. So I just wonder how that's going to affect them. There's almost a mirror with the men's team in some ways there, that that's so close but yet so far is now a season whereby the men's team have to deliver as well on something like that. So interesting times down lane.
And of course, that's before Lindsay Anfield moved to York as head of women's rugby, director of women's rugby, whatever the job title was. I've done no research, as you would know. And well, lots of people followed, not just from Castleford, but from Bradford and Wakefield and all over the place. And York certainly were a story in 2021 and will be in 2022. Now, one of the key things that returned in 2021 was you, the fan. I assume I'm talking to just one person at the moment. Fans were back at grounds, and one of those is our friend Andrew Quirk, and the author joined us on another edition of 4020 Not Live earlier in the year, after fans were back in grounds.
You've just reminded me I need to get the Hoover out.
Oh, nice. Covered in dust, much like the seats of stadia across the country, but now they are filled with people, and those people include author, putter of words into people's mouths, Andrew Quirk, who was there yesterday at the Totally Wicked Stadium. You were there. What was it like? What was it like to be back in a ground after forever?
As Daft Punk once sang, if love is the answer, you're home. And it was quite emotional, really, because they played Annie's song shortly before kick-off, which I know we probably stole from.
You stole from Sheffield United.
Sheffield United, yes. I knew you were going to say that, and everyone was singing, and then there was the big chorus of "Oh, when the Saints," and to be back on the ground as the players came out, you could see what it meant to them after playing in front of empty grounds. It was fantastic. It was everything I thought it would be. I've really missed it, and you had the ability to watch live sport, the ability of feeling some normality is coming back into your life, and catching up with people you hadn't seen for a long time. So. It seemed to have gone really well from a perspective at Saints last night. It was very well organised. They had the dispensers on entry into the stadium, and then they were handing out the antigen tests on your way out as well, so you could test yourself after the game. So hopefully it's step one into getting more and more people back, and everyone getting back into the stadiums.
Did everyone generally behave? I mean, watching the Warrington game on TV, people still don't wear their masks over their noses. I mean, we are, over a year into this thing.
Mate, it's the bane of my life that, if you're going to wear it around your chin, what is the point? And I did see a couple of people whose mask discipline wasn't what it should have been, but there was plenty of stewards on hand, and actually Saints were really good about announcing over the tannoy to remind people, you must wear your mask inside the stadium. And I think by and large, most people they did comply, which is really good.
We're not the mask police, by the way. We know people have legitimate reasons not to wear masks, but I do like the people who have those lanyards which indicate that they are able not to wear a mask, but still wear a mask as well, because they want to help everybody else, as opposed to those virulent anti-maskers who are just antisocial morons. But that's different from people who people who don't have legitimate reason not to wear masks. That's all right. Is that the politics done? Yeah, I think that's the politics done. On the field, Saints. But I mean, the great thing is, Andrew, you're my second favourite Saints fan because I love Kev on social media, who's the most negative person to follow the back-to-back champions. Unbeaten, win everything, blah blah blah. Win to 0 yesterday, but he's not happy, is he? He's never happy with the style of play. But you nil Seoul for the grand finalists a couple of years ago.
Kev was stood very close to me last night at the game, and 20 minutes after the 15 months break, and he was really looking forward to getting back. I heard, God, they're terrible, aren't they? They just can't attack. What a boring team to watch. It's like Cunningham's back. So he wasn't best pleased with the attack, but I think going to go on about the defence. The defence, I think, is really, really good. And what I've said all along is when our attack does click, and I think it will at some point in the season, I think we'll be absolutely fine. And I don't think there's much of a panic at Saints. I don't think it's Saints in crisis when you're top of the league in the semi-final of the Cup and you didn't concede a point. But Saints fans very demanding, and it's this history of being entertained, which is, I think, that little bit of tension against the current style of play. But I think we'll be okay.
Millstone around any team's neck, Phil, isn't it? When you dub the entertainers and you don't entertain anymore, it's like Wigan under Sean Wayne, where everyone's like, they're boring, and they only have Plan A, and but they keep winning things, and then they don't win things, and it's not quite the same, is it? But you reap what you sow, I guess.
Well, I have to say I was fortunate enough to be at Castleford last night, and echoing everything that Andrew said. I mean, clearly he was at a game where he had a dog in the fight. I was just there to be part of welcoming crowds back and gauging some reaction to it. And I think the only word you can use is emotional. I think if you love sport, its true essence is in having crowds back, and you realise what you've missed and how much you've missed it. And that was really when the Castleford side ran out to warm up, and virtually everybody who was by then in the ground either got up off their seats or shrieked their heads off if they were standing up behind the terraces, just because they could see and connect again with their heroes. And of course, an hour into the game, they were screaming offside and berating the ref because the opposition were actually playing better than them. But there's something absolutely magical about playing in front of fans that I don't think we ever didn't appreciate. But I think when you haven't had it for a while, it meant everything. When the team does run out, and it was a mutual acknowledgement thing, as I'm sure it was at St Helens as well, that the players were clapping the fans as much as the fans were welcoming the players. The hairs stand up on the back of your neck for no other reason than this is what you've been watching sport for all your life, and this is what it means. You talk about the music that was played, highly appropriately, I think. As the fans were allowed into the ground at Weldon Road, they played the Verve's Bittersweet Symphony. And for a while, that's what it was, because there was the minute silence before the game for all of those who, desperately can't be there and who we were all thinking about. And clearly the world has changed. Everybody behaved. There were gaps between people in the stands. There were respectful spaces between people on the terraces. There was a delay when the ground was emptied at the end because they did it section by section. And there was no compulsion by anybody to break what the rules were. And that was fantastic. And yeah, we can talk about the games, but actually the story this week is the fans.
Whatever normal was, Andrew, it's not going to be like this for a while, is it? So we're going to have to get used to what it was yesterday. And I guess it's just the fact that we are allowed back is the main thing, and whatever we have to do to be back is irrelevant.
I think that's the key thing. I think because we've had such limited ability to do many things that we took for granted just 18 months ago, that it is small steps. And I think people are so grateful. I mean, obviously, there was a lot of Saints fans who would have wanted to have been at last night's game who weren't successful in the ballot. So it was a privilege to be there, especially on that first night back, and to experience that. So, yes, obviously, wearing the mask might be a little bit uncomfortable. It gets hot. I personally wasn't used to being stood still for 2 hours. I'm an old man now, and my back was singing out, but I won't complain about anything. And I think whatever we need to do to continue this journey safely for everybody, then people will comply, I'm sure.
And it's great credit to Rugby League supporters and over the past 12 months where Saints have won the Super League, Leeds won the Challenge Cup, teams have won various different things and done various different things, that fans haven't congregated outside stadia and celebrated and trashed city centres and whatever, as we've seen in other sports over the past 12 months, not just this weekend. And, fans have missed out on those great communal moments. I mean, I know you had Tommy Makerson wandering around the ground with the trophy yesterday, but it's not the same as being in a packed Old Trafford and being in the car park afterwards and celebrating.
No, exactly. And I think there's 2 points there. Obviously, we discussed it previously when I was on the podcast about the ending to the last grand final. And if that had been played in front of a packed stadium, the reactions of everybody, I think it would have been absolutely incredible. But the second thing about not congregating outside grounds, which is really important, is that Langtree Park is a COVID vaccination hub, already vaccinated over 100,000 people. So it's really important that people stay away because it's being used for a very, very important role in the community as well.
I was going to say, I think the other thing is we need to pay tribute to the players, because what came home last night was, whilst they could not have given more, and that is to their eternal credit because they clearly do thrive off an atmosphere, there's been an artificiality. And I echo everything Andrew says. We've been privileged to be in grounds when there's been no crowd to report on the action. And there's never been anything less than total commitment by any player who's played under these rogue circumstances. But the game was different last night because there was an interaction that we haven't had. And it was lovely not to hear the players, that they were drowned out by the chanting of songs. But I tell you what I miss more than anything, humour, because this has been such a dark and tragic time for so many. But you forget just how funny fans can be, and spontaneously funny. And just even as the sides lined up last night, Hull KR were kicking off towards the Weldon Road end where those passionate Castleford fans who always start singing "Get Into 'Em" immediately they're on the defensive are. And I think Cass were kicking off to that end, and Ryan Hall was lining up in front of those fans, and they came up with an absolutely hilarious chant for him, which I won't repeat because it wasn't for an audience that may well contain people under the age of 18, but. Not only did he laugh, but he stuck his thumbs up to the Castleford fans because they'd found something to try and put him off, but actually that was very, very funny. It revolved around "You're just a fat Leeds reject," and you'd suddenly realise that's what you've missed. And it, clearly by the end, those who have got in have forgotten that 14 months of waiting for that opportunity doesn't mean that they can't vent their opinions on what they've seen, and absolutely they should. And to be fair, Hull KR were magnificent, but it's all the little things you take for granted, I think, are the ones that you notice the most when you go back.
Fans were back, and hopefully will be in 2022, which it is now. Happy New Year, by the way. It is a brand new year, full of excitement. Still looking forward to that World Cup, aren't we? Also, not returning in 2022 is Steve Price. He's off, left Warrington. Will 2022 be their year? Well, the man who may well guide them to that elusive title is Daryl Powell, who also left the Castleford Tigers. Although his announcement was at the start of the season, he left at the end.
Should we start with Daryl Powell? Because he's off to Warrington.
I'm not starting with him. I reckon he could take me easy.
3 weeks for a press conference. It takes that long. I will be back.
According to something John Davidson wrote, he won't be the only person leaving Castleford to go to Warrington. He wrote that about a month ago, but this is not shocking news, is it?
Depends who you're thinking as in not the only person to leave Castleford for Warrington. Are we talking player or staff member?
Well, I think from John's stories, I think one of each, perhaps.
Certainly, I think a staff member. Player, I'm not so sure. I think Warrington want the player, but I'm not sure the player wants to go.
Which is interesting. But Darryl Powell moving to Warrington, I guess it's been kind of, as soon as Steve Price announced he was leaving and Darryl Powell announced he was leaving Castleford, it kind of made sense.
Are both coaches going to stick it out for the remainder of the season? I know, like, with all the will in the world, the idea is lovely, but do we really think that that's going to happen, Bill?
I think the important thing is that both clubs have got a big turnover of staff coming. And by announcing it early, there's absolutely no doubt that Darryl will get involved with who he wants at Warrington and who he wants to bring in at Warrington. So I think that's an advantage to have that out in the open. They're both, on the basis of what we saw last week, playing well enough for the coaches to stay where they are. Darryl actually seems really relaxed now that it's all out there, and he's a jovial fella off the camera anyway. But sometimes he can be a bit taciturn on it. But he seems to be trying very hard to be relaxed and enjoy the year for what it is. I think he'd want to see it out at Castleford. The only doubt for me is that if Warrington play more like they did in week 1 than they did in week 2, will there be a push from the Warrington board to hasten it? But I think they'll stick where they are, and then nobody's paying out any deals to end contracts early, and everybody knows where they sit. There's going to be real pressure on Darryl in this job. I think when he took Castleford, it was the dream scenario for him. It was his hometown club. They were on the crest of a slump when he took over, and immediately he could institute what he wanted to do, how he wanted to do it, bring in some of the players he wanted to it. There was a time element. I think in the first full year to get to Wembley, elevated everything and hastened it perhaps even quicker than he'd thought it would do. He's not going to get any of that luxury at Warrington. He's been brought in to deliver the Holy Grail, assuming that Steve Price doesn't this year, and that will put him massively in the spotlight. It may be what he wants. Will be interesting to see if how much leeway he gets from the Warrington board and the fans.
And like Phil said, I think Steve Price will stay, because will the Warrington board really want to pay off the fella who's leaving anyway? And in terms of Darryl, I mean, lots and lots of players out of contract at Warrington. Will he sort of keep some on? Who will he keep on? Who will he bring in if he's going to bring new people in? And also, who will Casper go for? Will Casper go English, or will he look Australia way? Or it's a real sort of big sort of question for Casper. I think he's more questions at Casper than there is at Warrington, to be honest with you.
I think Gary's absolutely right on that now. There are quite a lot of players out of contract at Cass as well. They need to get somebody announced and involved in the process of retention and recruitment ASAP. I also think that it says something about relative ambitions, because I think Darryl has realised that there is finite resource at Castleford that there possibly isn't as much at Warrington. And if he is going to build a team in his image, he is going to get some players in either from his current club or wherever he thinks that the gaps are at Warrington. He's going to get the resource to do it. I'm not sure that Cass are in that position at the moment. So I think the spotlight now well and truly is on the Tigers.
We'll talk more about the domestic game later, but let's have a look at the mid-season internationals, which were very exciting because England took on the combined All-Stars, the men that is, which include people who played for England in the past. But they got a nice kit. I mean, it's on sale for 20 quid right now. I'm still waiting for it to go down to about 15 before I finally push the button and purchase it, unless someone wants to send me a free one. We are one of these internet programs where no one sends us free stuff. I don't know what's going on. I need to up our game. But England's men took on the combined All-Stars, and before the match, our man Phil Kaplan, he got 2 and a bit minutes with Sean Wayne.
Just a couple of questions, if you don't mind. You've got genuine competition for places in a lot of positions. Are you prepared to play players out of position to get the team that you want?
Yeah, good question. I'm not that way inclined unless I really have to. I think at international level, I like to pick players in the best position, if I'm really honest. If we have a few injuries at the time of the small game or any game of the World Cup, I will do that, but I'm not that way. I like playing players in their position.
And just in terms of one player, I know it's invidious to pick anyone out of those you've chosen, but James Roby, you know, coming towards the back end of his career, is still putting in stellar performances. The rule changes again seem to have suited him. Do you think he might have played his way back into contention?
Absolutely. You look at his stats, Phil, and his stats are through the roof. You know, and this lockdown, the gaps, what he's had a long pre-season. You know, he's lost a year, so he's probably feeling as good as he's ever felt. He would have played in every season. He would have played with injuries in every game. And imagine that, playing a game like Rugby League with injuries, and that's what he's done. And this will probably be the first time in his career when he's never done that. And you can tell his form is fantastic. But so is Paul McShane. You know, we've got Darrell Clark, it's in good form, and Josh is in the NRL. So you bang on. We've got some great competition for places. And I hope my job in October is really hard. And I hope everybody's fit. And I hope I'm going to upset a lot of players. You know, I'm picking from a really fit squad. But James Roby's been outstanding.
And just finally, I know you've got limited time with the players, so it's going to be hard to train for two different sets of rules, perhaps. When would you hope that you'd get clarification on what the World Cup is going to be played under?
Very, very quickly. The sooner the better, if I'm honest, Phil. You know, but there's a lot of things like a world-class standard, what we're talking about with England, what the players need to get up to, and we're showing data to the players, we're showing footage to show exactly what we mean. So we've got lots to work on and lots to do. We're running out of time, and I need to use that time on the field wisely. So when we get to know the exact rules, what we're playing under, then we'll jump on that when the time arises.
Now, thanks to the unique design of Langtree Park, or the Totally Wicked Stadium as it's called now, it's very hard to do a press conference for a match if you're sat in the stadium. So Lucky on Me was at home because I didn't bother going to St Helens for the double header. So while no one could get decent signal up in the press box, I had to lead the presser for the men's game, the women's game, I should say, between England and Wales. In a moment, we'll hear from Thomas Brindle, the coach of Wales. But first, here's the England boss, Craig Richards.
Massively proud. Like I say, it's been quite a journey. 3 months ago, we had to kind of start again. And to put that performance in for those long periods of time, massively proud. For 25 minutes, we competed in the first half, and for 30 minutes, we competed in the second. So, yeah, every one of them has been a credit to themselves, the families, and the country today.
Obviously didn't get to see much of Wales going forward with ball in hand, but defensively, to keep England to 60 points is a fairly decent achievement in your first proper test match, so to speak.
Yeah, I think so. Like I say, for long periods of time, we competed. I think we solved a lot of those problems. We knew what they were going to throw them, and we had our structures to try and resolve that. If I say we took a look at a bit of context, 24 months, a lot of these have hardly played a game or 1 or 2 games. So I think that got the better us a little bit with just a bit of match fitness and match preparedness. But when we was in there, I thought we did a great job of handling, I say, a strong England side.
I think there's elements of that performance that I was really pleased with. As a team, as a squad, we've tried to pride ourselves on defence first and foremost, because we're a big believer that a defence is what will win us the World Cup. And from a defensive point of view, I thought we handled everything that got thrown at us. But more than that, I thought we were willing to work hard on and off the ball defensively. In attack, again, at times scrappy, and it feels strange saying that when you scored so many points, but it kind of showed what we can do as a team. We've got a lot of talented players that are willing to work hard, and even though we've left some points on the park, as I would like to say, we've also scored a lot of points. So for me, it's about glass half full, and I've come away quite positive.
You've heard from the coaches. Let's get some reaction to that England versus the combined Nations All-Stars match on another episode when we're actually in the studio on 4020. England men taking on the combined Nations All-Stars. I don't think they needed to go the whole... Well, Jake Connor, he's celebrating his Trinidadian heritage. I can't even say. We know why he's in this. You don't need to...
Cruz Leeming's only there for his Zimbabwe. No.
Swaziland, Phil.
He wants to play for England in the World Cup.
You don't need any because everyone knows anyway. But regardless, didn't Tim Sheens apologise in the post match to Brett Hodgson because all the whole players got injured. Oh dear. The England versus the Combined Nations All Stars. It was a match. You probably paid more attention to it than I feel because I was trying to edit the post match of the women's game. It seems like it was a close game, and Sean Wayne got the tight match he wanted, and it was a challenge in his first game in charge, which had no caps on it. So all those people who kept saying Joe Westman's won his second cap, he hasn't. Scully's apoplectic.
He was texting everyone he knew saying, if they get caps, I want my 50th.
I know you've read his column today, and he's obviously not well, but no one's got any extra caps. We will try and get him that 50th cap somehow. But no one got any caps. That's all right. As a thing, as a concept, okay. England needed a game. We'd prefer they played a proper team. They decided to go down this route. As it turns out, Phil, judging by what we've heard afterwards, it sounds like the Combined Nations players really bought into the concept and really wanted to represent whatever they were representing.
Well, I think what they were representing, it meant a hell of a lot to them, and it says a massive amount for Tim Sheens finding the cause to. Sheens said afterwards, when they went into camp, they only had 14 players, and they only ended up having 2 training sessions together. So they needed something to rally around, and that was clearly Mossy Massoy. It meant a huge amount to them to wear his kit. It meant a lot to them that I think he zoomed into the team to talk to them during the build-up. He was there at the game. Sometimes when you need a cause, there's no better cause than that. There were a couple of players that were, sounded out as to maybe whether they could go back to their clubs when it was so difficult to get a team together in the first place. And they said, no, what's happening is really special, and want to be part of that. And you looked at some of the players that then backed up on Sunday for Leeds. I'm only saying that because that was the only game that they backed up in. All 4 of them were particularly the 2 that played for the Combined Nations All-Stars. Cruisley, I thought was very good in the second half when he came on. Played the full 80 minutes on Sunday, but he wouldn't have dreamt of not playing on a Friday night for that cause and to show where he is, even if it's to Sean Wayne in the opposition. I'm not sure what we could have expected when Lomax and Walmsley pulled out during the week, when you haven't got any of the NRL players for England coming over. It's not the full England squad that would be playing in a World Cup if it kicked off tomorrow.
That's why I'm assuming Morgan Knowles played at prop when...
Well, the only strange thing about that is Sean Wayne saying, I'm only going to pick players who are in their rightful position, and then he picks a loose forward at prop, which seemed odd. There were a couple of standout performances. I thought Tom Davis did all right on his debut. And the story of him driving to the game in a separate car from Sam Tompkins just showed their commitment. I thought Michalewski was really good, the Polish Englishman. Knowles played very well. Paul McShane showed that even though he was 31 and he was given this opportunity late in his career, he didn't let anybody down. And I think you'd be thinking, he could be a really good backup if we needed him, if Darrell Clark wasn't available, or if you're going down the road of Josh Hodgson, that you're bringing in a guy who not only is the man of steel but showed he could go up a level as well. So some positives for England. If I was Sean Wayne, and I think he was being brutally honest on the Saturday morning in his review with the players, as opposed to there's loads of positives in the press conference afterwards. You'd be saying, I tried to instill in you we need to be strong in defence, and you've conceded 4 relatively soft tries. But the only worry with the game was exactly what killed the Exiles concept. Very hard to have an atmosphere at a match where you don't want either team to lose, or you're not going to boo or take a side, because the guys who are playing for the opposition are as much people you want to cheer and get behind as the guys who are playing for England. So you are a Hull fan. You're going there going, I really want Jake Connors to do well, and Chris Satter, they've been great for us this year. And you're going, oh yeah, but I'm an England fan. So that dynamic didn't really work. But it achieved what everybody wanted to achieve. It looked good on telly because it's outside of the norm, and there's a buy-in to international rugby league. It's just such a shame that we had games on around it at the same time as it and straight after it.
Why did someone boo during the 13 seconds? That came across on TV. I'm asking that as a rhetorical question.
I think it's because they're dense.
Especially when neither team kneeled, which is the usual excuse.
Well, and also I think it's safe to say that they were drowned out a little bit as well. But yes.
I was going to say something about the... well, this is just the important thing. It was on both 5 Live and TalkSport, wasn't it? The game. Because the RFL picked a blank weekend in the Euros to play it, or blank Friday rather, and on the BBC Sport website it was the main story, and the women's game was a main headline as well.
And it was
no one knows that these games, were what
the men's game was close. Therefore, it had, if you were listening to it on the radio or come across it on the television, you'd have kept watching it because you didn't know who was going to win, and it turned out that they were pretty evenly matched. The difference, as we said, was a penalty just before half-time. And everybody bought in and committed to it. And that's great. It's just we shouldn't then exploit them by expecting them to play again. And you look at the fixtures this week and you just shake your head and go, it cannot be right.
So where Paul McShane may have done his chances no harm of being in Sean Wayne's final, however many men's squad they were allowed for the World Cup, I don't know how many it is. It's like the... you don't win the Super League title in April. You win it in October.
Especially if you wait until you finish 5th.
In the rain at Old Trafford when you lead. But some players may well have played their way out to the thoughts of Sean Wayne based on one performance. Well, you can decide at home, and not like you're Sean Wayne.
And I also think as well that in some of those positions, it's fairly obvious where those who played on Friday probably won't figure further down the line. But no, it was a competitive... Reece Lynn, your very own Reece Lynn, who I think if...
Reece Lightning,
if they were going to draw up, let's say, 22 players to be in a World Cup game tomorrow, may not be in it if everybody's fit. Did really well.
He'd be on the probables this morning.
Yeah.
Possibles.
Didn't do his case any harm at all if the 2 or 3 people who you might think were in front of him ended up being injured.
Anyway, it was all a waste of time because it wasn't in the papers. So that was England versus the All-Stars, which may well be back or not. Who knows? I don't know. Would you have it? But there's no point in saying would you have it back again as a concept, because we're in favour of playing actual internationals against actual teams. So it's not that the concept
with caps.
It's not that the concept in and of itself is a bad one. It's just we prefer a different one.
I think again you've got to look at history and say, why did the Exiles not work? And it didn't work because by the end of it, it wasn't a contest. So this is a one-off in a hopefully World Cup year. It worked. But I think, if we're talking about a genuine international calendar moving forward, you've got to hope that, assuming the World Cup goes ahead, that we will see an Ireland team, we will see a Scotland team, we will see a Wales team, and we'll certainly see a much better French team, that they need fixtures going forward, and they need them against England.
Well, as we reach an hour into the programme, it's now time to upset everyone as we look at the actual fixtures that happen involving teams that aren't England. And I am interested that Andy says he's glad England got beat. Why is that, Andy? What don't you like about England?
He might be Scottish.
It might be. That's true. Maybe it's from the Combined Nations All-Stars. So it's an indifferent Friday night, but it was a good Saturday lunchtime in Sheffield because we went to the international between England and Wales, the Wheelchair International. First time I've ever seen Wheelchair Rugby League live in the flesh. And boy, is that some experience. I don't think you ever get over the clank noise when the chairs bash into each other, nor the sheer skill on show on the pitch. Let's hear from 3 people involved now, including the England captain, Tom Halliwell. You'll hear from Wales's Jodie-Ann Boyd-Ward as well. But first, here's a man who was the man of the match. Well, player of the match, I guess, because it's mixed teams, isn't it? It's Nathan Collins.
Nathan, congratulations for the match performance. How did you feel you played today?
Thank you. I thought I played all right. First international game back in 2 years after we played in Australia. So, it was good to get the English shirt back on there, get back out there with the team.
How's it been not having the ability to play for a couple of years because of COVID and everything?
It's been a long way, but the coaches have done well getting us prepared, and even doing home sessions on Zoom and stuff like that. That's really helped us to get to where we are today. And once as soon as we got the chance to come back into training, we're straight back into training, and it's helped us really a lot. So yeah.
Just the one goal kick missed as well.
Yeah.
Is that the only part of your performances after?
Yeah, I didn't have enough room to kick it on the side, so I didn't have enough of my normal routine to push through. But yeah, I missed one. But yeah, it's all right.
How do you feel the team played overall? Obviously, on the scoreboard, it looks like a big result, 102.
Well, I didn't even recognise score. I didn't even look at scoreboards. I looked at the clock on that last kick, but I didn't know what score was. But yeah, the team worked really hard. So
going into the World Cup, that's an important performance for them.
Yeah, it's just one step towards the World Cup. This is helping us prepare to get to that, the World Cup stages and hopefully progress through to the semi-finals and finals. But yeah, today all the boys put an effort and from head to boys.
I'm playing in front of the crowd here today in Sheffield. How was
that?
It
was really nice to get a crowd back here. I haven't played in a crowd since like Australia in front of Australia game. But all fans were great. Getting behind us all the way. So yeah, great to have fans back.
It was definitely an experience. I think we worked really hard. In the first 20 minutes we gave it everything, and I think we shocked England a little bit. We're just learning how to play as a team, and we've had a few new additions into that team, including myself. So actually, I'm quite pleased with the performance that we've given, and we know what we need to have a look at and work on, ready for the World Cup.
And changing nations, how did that come about, and how did it feel lining up against some of your teammates?
So the changing nations was something that I thought about for a long time. I just wasn't in the right frame of mind to be within that setup at England, unfortunately. And it took a lot of speaking to various people to make that decision. Today, as you may have seen, what happens on the pitch stays on the pitch, and there's a few pushes between myself and Tom Halliwell and Simo, and it's the first time we've competed against each other, and I actually really enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong, I'm going to enjoy next weekend when we're competing together in Challenge Cup final, but I can't complain. We both, as different sides gave it all, and as, Leeds teammates on different nations, we did the same there.
How do you feel like going into that World Cup? Obviously, it looks a big scoreline on the scoreboard. I've got no idea what that reflects in terms of wheelchair rugby league. It's the first game I've ever seen, so I've no idea if that's a big score or not, or how it reflects in terms of anything else.
I mean, it gives us a starting point. Obviously, we've not played England since Tri-Nations 2019. And even then I was on the England team then, so it's a bit, we've got a starting point to look at where we want to be. And I mean, the score I think doesn't reflect the rugby that was played. There were parts where we could have been a bit tighter in defence, and unfortunately we weren't. But again, as I keep saying, it's the first time we're facing England, first time I'm facing England. So I don't think we did too bad, and I think it's given us a lot of things to think about, come back and regroup and work on as a team for that World Cup and for the teams that we've got in that group.
I know they're trying to outdo us in the stands. In terms of, I know Wales did beat England, they were certainly in terms of the anthem singing, it gets the hairs on the back of your neck standing up, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong, learning the Welsh national anthem has been hard. Apparently with my condition, every time I learn a word in a different language, I lose one of language. The last few weeks has definitely been interesting, but we aim to go out, give it everything, and I think we did. We gave what we could, worked for each other. I can't ask for any more as part of the team.
For those who are watching at home and for those in the stands who are watching at home, Rugby League, what do you think those made of it?
I mean, I haven't even looked at my phone yet, and I already know it's full of messages for people who have never watched a sport. Different, there's different audiences, and I think having that platform that we've got for this game is great because people who've never seen it are going to be watching, and I think their first reaction tends to be, oh my gosh, looks rough, looks fast. And we're appealing to a wider audience now, and it's such a great thing, especially in the lead up to the World Cup, that people who may not have picked up on the sport beforehand have just happened to find it today, whether it's via social media, on the platforms that it's on. I know several people who have never heard of this sport have been watching today, so we're getting there and we're growing the game just as we should be doing.
First time captain in the country, how did it feel?
Yeah, it felt good. Very, very proud moment to lead the boys out today. But it's just my usual job. It was no real. It's not a role, to be fair. It's just playing my normal game. I'm a leader on the field, so it's just doing my job. So obviously, a proud moment for the family and friends that came to watch. So yeah, we're more for them than me, to be honest.
Tactical tries. How do you think you performed personally?
A few shaky offloads, a few shaky passes, which I shouldn't have done. I should have worked on my timing and maybe a bit earlier, but. Apart from that, I think it was a solid game and a solid effort from the boys. But I don't take the plaudits, the boys could do that.
In terms of the scoreline, 102 to 22, was that a fair reflection for someone who's never seen wheelchair rugby league before? It seems like a big gap between the two sides.
We thought the scoreline were irrelevant, even in our build-up, and we've always thought it's irrelevant. We focus on our processes and focus on our fundamentals and stuff that we need to focus on. So for me, the scoreline's irrelevant, but for me, the scoreline, even 102 points to 22, doesn't reflect the game. It was a hard, tough hit out. I mean, I'm aching now after playing 65 minutes, but that was a tough hit out, and credit to Wales, they put a good show on. So yeah.
Well, as I say, it's the first time I've ever seen a wheelchair rugby league game live. I've seen it on TV, but when you're there in the stands, you hear the collisions. How does it feel? Is it something you just get used to after time?
To be fair though, it sounds a lot worse than what it actually is. I mean, it's metal on metal at the end of the day. If your body's out of the way of it, you're not physically at them. It's just chair on chair, and that's where the noise comes from. But apart from that, you do get used to it after a while.
No injuries in the game. That's the other thing that stands out. The ball didn't play for so long. There's just so little time to stop and stand.
Sometimes you have a little aches and pains and stuff, but luckily for the backroom staff, we've got physios and doctors and stuff that help us out and help us recover. But you just have to be fit. You have to be fit to play this game, and there's so many back and forth because it's that quick, and 1 minute past and you have to change. So yeah, you just have to keep on top of it and keep looking around and keep fit.
Finally, how good the game was that in terms of building up to the World Cup?
Yeah, it was needed, very much needed. To go into a World Cup without a game would be extremely hard for us players to be able to see where we're at. But with this game, we've got a pinpoint of where we're at and where we can progress to come November. And November's coming up thick and fast, so we need to make sure we're on tip-top form come the World Cup.
2021 was a great year for the wheelchair sport, with the internationals as we saw on the BBC, the Challenge Cup final on there as well, and the grand final live on Sky. Just further proof that every other part of rugby league, as well as the men, is growing year on year. And long may it continue. Now, one of those parts, of course, is the women's game, which we have championed long and hard here on 4020 TV and in our past life. Well, the Rugby Football League have improved in the last few years, because rather getting some chances from above a sandwich shop in Leeds to cover the Challenge Cup final, they've got the BBC to do it these days, so we understand they're quite good at these things. Now, I wasn't at the final, and the post-match from the final was a bit rubbish because everyone had to bugger off and get a bus. So here's the semi-finals. We were in York as Castleford took on York in a big grudge match, which York won, and St Helens played Leeds. Now, in the past few years, Leeds have had Saints' number in semi-finals, both in the Challenge Cup and in the championship race for the grand final. But this year, finally, it was Saints' year. They beat Leeds in the semi-final, and you could hear how enthusiastic Jodie Cunningham was from the touchline back up in the stand. Thankfully, I was down asking the questions to her.
Jodie, congratulations. Challenge Cup finalist. How does it feel?
So good. It's so nice to hear you say that. Challenge Cup finalists. We came short in 2019. We knew we could do it in 2020, and it was taken away. So this year, we absolutely were 100% focused on making sure we got to that final and lifting it in the end, but we're one step closer. The girls are absolutely outstanding. They're so buzzing in that changing room, singing their hearts out, and we deserve this. We've worked really hard over the last 18 months.
We're about 20 minutes after the game's finished. Now, when's this adrenaline going to wear off?
I'm not sure, but when it does, I think I'm going to be in pain, because that was a really, really tough game. My body's took a bit of a battering. We knew it would be. Leeds are a tough opposition. They've got some quality players, but You know, as a team, we knew we had the quality to win today. We just had to stick in, cut out the errors. We had a few in that first half. We got a bit ropey and just said we need to be more patient with it. Our defence was really strong, kept us in it, and then we've got the talent to score the tries, and they went on and did that. So brilliant.
Really intense, entertaining game. You used to say the defence was the key there, and you gave Leeds so few chances throughout the 80 minutes.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, like I say, they've got dangerous players, but I think we shut them down because we didn't give them enough time to run at us. Our line speed was brilliant, our initial contact was good, and then we controlled the floor, so they were playing off slow rucks all the time, and it just didn't give their danger players time on the ball. So yeah, I mean, our tactics worked well. Like I say, we shifted the ball a little bit, made a few errors in the first half, cut that out, and grinded out the win.
What's the difference then between 2019 and 2021 in terms of Saints and being able to get that little bit you needed to get over the line in these big games against Leeds?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think you've got to win some, lose some to win some. We felt how much it hurt to lose in those semi-finals. We were ahead in both and then lost it in the last 20 minutes. So we knew. Well, I don't think it was fitness necessarily in those games, but we focused a lot on that. The girls looked fit, strong, and that's playing a contributing factor. But not just that, I think mentally we're all in a really good place. We know how to win games now. We know how to grind out those last 20 minutes. We're a much more professional side. From 1 to 17, we all do our jobs well. We all know our roles, and everyone went and did that today.
As much as everyone enjoys winning 18-0 or whatever, it must be great to play in a game like that. That's really intense, really competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't enjoy winning 18-0. We've said that we're going to be professional in every single game we play. So for us, every performance will go 100% because that's how you then put a performance out like we did today against a tough opposition and still come out with a win. So they're the games we want to play in. That's why we work really, really hard. It's not for the 18-0s, it's for the ones you win by one try, where you've really got to dig in for each other.
Before we talk about York in the final, you've played here at York today. You'll be coming back here in the World Cup. What's it like as a venue?
Brilliant. The stadium's fantastic. I mean, the ground's a bit dry. I've lost a little bit of skin. But yeah, the stadium's absolutely brilliant. I think, each time we get to play in a new stadium at venues like this, being on BBC, Red Button, all these little steps are massive for the women who've played this game. Myself, Emily Rudge, we've been part of this women's setup for donkey's years now, and for us to see the difference and where the game's gone is massive. So yeah, we're getting to do this now in the Women's Super League, and then in the World Cup, wow, the stadiums will be playing at then.
Obviously, I'm a Yorkshireman. I don't know how to pronounce it. Tato Heath. I got it right first time. That name's on the Women's Challenge Cup. It doesn't say St Helens there. Live, BBC Two, couple of weeks' time, Leeds Sports Village. You're taking on York. You're going to be the big favourites. How do you go into a game like that, knowing that you are very favoured to win that competition?
Just be professional, like we have been. Stick to our process, not talk about the opposition. For us, we do everything that we can. I know we've got the quality 1 to 17, well, not even 1 to 17, the whole squad, 1 to 30. We've got the quality to beat any team out there, so it doesn't really matter what opposition we face. If we stick to our processes, we win it, so that's all we'll do in the final, is stick to our processes, focus on us.
It's always great when you slide into the DMs of Rugby League personalities and they agree to come on the programme, as Danny Ward did after his departure from the London Broncos. We covered a number of topics, including how he ruined Toronto's life by beating them in the £1 million game, and also starting out at the Leeds Rhinos, a club which his name is fairly familiar at.
It's really hard being the son of someone of an incredibly famous father, and there are many that haven't been able to handle that pressure. How did you find it? Because you created your own career despite the fact that you were carrying the Ward name.
Yeah, it's pretty hard at first, everyone... like all my mates just used to call me son of, because whenever my name got mentioned, it would always Danny Ward, son of. So that was my nickname for quite a long time. And certainly signing at a club like Leeds, it kind of took that challenge of, I knew what kind of pressure that had come with going to Leeds when my dad had been there. So it's all kind of come with the territory really. Once I was kind of into the game and around the club, a lot of people still knew my dad, and it was nice. Like I say, it was a quality player for the club, and proud of everything he achieved. So to be a part of the Rhinos as well, and kind of follow that, was a proud moment. And like I said, didn't feel too much pressure in that way, even though, like I say, my mates had give me a stick for it. And but yeah, it was awesome. Like, I did have second thoughts about signing for Leeds on my way to signing. I wanted to kind of go back on it and turn it down, because I could have signed at Fev and my mates were going to Fed as well, and like I think my dad was coach there as well at that time. So it was a tough choice, and I was having kind of second thoughts about going to Leeds and following his footsteps. And I was sat in the car on the way over to sign, and too scared to say I've actually changed my mind here, Dad. I don't really want to sign for Leeds, but that was too scared of my old man to tell him that we got in the car and got all suited up to go over to Headingley and sign that day, but didn't want to. Wanted to go to Fev instead with my mates, and but yeah, just bottled it and ended up signing, and it turned out all right.
Part of the golden generation as well. Did you envisage that group that was coming through at the time would have the success it ultimately went on to have?
Yeah, it did. It felt special coming through. We had such a quality academy side. People like Gaz Carvel, Cine, Jamie Jones, Buchanan, Disco. All these lads were just playing in the academy team together, and by the time we all kind of broke into first team, we'd already been playing about 4 or 5 years together, and win the academy championship. So we always knew, people, the lads around you, the strength, and how good a team that was. And we knew that transition to first team, if we worked hard, the next crop of juniors coming through, like your Robs and your Dannies, we saw them coming into the academy as well. And there was such incredible buzz around the place, even in the early 2000s when they lost a couple of finals in the Challenge Cup and got to the semis of the Super League. We kind of knew that the quality was there, but there was also a super amount of pressure on, and we knew the history of Leeds and how long they've gone without a title as well. So there's a lot of pressure really, but as young kids you don't feel it as much. You just enjoy playing it with each other every day. All you want to do is get out there and play rugby with your best mates, and that's what we kind of had really. The team who won that grand final was about 10-11 who come through the system together, been playing that long, either at reserves or academy level, and you were all just like best mates, and so you just had no fear really.
Well, we're talking about expansion, so let's get to this point. You ruined Toronto. You and the London Broncos ruined Toronto by beating them in that £1 million game. Do you not take any blame for their demise in the sport?
Do a little bit, yeah. I do actually think about that, where it could actually be now, or what it could look like now if we wouldn't have been selfish and won that £1 million game. Who knows? That's just not knowing, is it? Toronto were a fantastic team that year, and it's a shame that we both couldn't come up. Again, big fan of Toronto and what they did. Got to witness firsthand, the amazing atmospheres and at them games over there. I saw how much work got put in, and it was a real shame that they can't be in the league now, and we can't grow on what we had there for a small period. And who knows, where that'd be right now.
Obviously, I'm being slightly sarcastic there, but was that one of the highlights of your coaching career then today? That victory away from home against the odds?
100%, yeah. That was by far, the biggest highlight from my career. Not mind just coaching. It was unbelievable to be a part of that team that won promotion in that way. Especially away from home, and you look at the young blokes who we had in that team, the homegrown talent we had in that team. The group have been together for a number of years as well, and such a fantastic group of players to work with and staff as well. I'd seen how much everyone had put into that year, and to be a part of winning kind of a grand final at any level was pretty special. And to gain promotion the way they did, what an amazing time that was. And again, an amazing place to do it. Toronto, fantastic city, and a big crowd, and it was a fantastic day.
We mentioned fans earlier. They were back at venues, and they were back at Wembley for a great day for the Challenge Cup and 1895 Cup finals. Before we get on to those, let's hear from Francis Cummings, who joined us in the studio earlier in the year to talk about his Wembley memories.
What do you go through as a player in Wembley week? Because you've been there as the youngest ever player, and you've been there slightly older and a bit more experience and understanding of what it's all about. Can you prepare for it?
You can prepare for an empty Wembley, like what Leeds had in Salford. But no, I think, and I don't know how many people are we going to be able to have in.
They're hoping 40,000, but we won't know until we go up to level 4 or not.
Right. So if we're banking on that, it's not so much that. It's one is media's everywhere, which you're not as used to. There's more of that. You've got demand for tickets. You've got all that, you know, you're getting people. I haven't spoke to you for 3 years, but yeah, I'll see if we can get some more. You know, there's all that. It's a different level. And
there's leaving on the Thursday and there's staying at a hotel and
having a walk round and all that. I mean, it's brilliant. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we're talking to some of the older teams that went in the 70s and 80s. Some of them used to go a week, or they'd go to Blackpool a couple of days, and
they'd go dog racing the day before.
They'd be all over, and they'd be on
go to a show and
having a few beers. Like, what? I mean, I remember my first Wembley. I think we were Bishop Abbey. I think we stayed, and there was all kinds of things outside, tennis courts and croquet lawns, and me and Graham Allroyd had done a lot. We'd done everything. We'd get to bed. We played tennis at something like 9 o'clock on a Friday. It's more emotionally draining than the actual game. You walk out, it's red hot. That's another thing. It's all the other things going around you. You know, your family are down or whatever. You're up in that whatever weekend. You're training on different places. It's a great experience, and I wish I could do it again. But it's not normal, and if you've not experienced it, it can flatten you.
You played at the old Wembley as well, the old configuration of Wembley, where that walk from the dressing room was must have felt like 3 hours to get to the middle. They don't have that anymore.
No.
But that, as a young kid, must have played with your nerves.
Well, it did. Obviously, I had some players in there. Ellery Handley. The stories about me. I was in the academy in the A team for a month really. We're playing like 3 games a week because we didn't have enough players. But I got in the first team, and I walk in the first team dressing room, and there's one space next to Ellery Handley. They're all sat down. There's from Alan Tate going through Kevin Iro, Craig Innes, Scoey, who seemed 50 years old then. No, he did, because I was 17. He was an old man, but he was still relatively young. And there's one place next to Ellery Handley. I'm thinking, I can't go and sit there. Anyway, Beckham, I sat next to him. It was brilliant the day before at Wembley for me. He just pulled me to one side. I've seen his mates with Sean Edwards, and he just said, listen, there's 2 things you need to concentrate on. One is get your head down on the way out, because it's got to be loud. And you don't start looking up there because you have a game to play. And then the other one was, he said, they're going to test you straight away. So you get ready. So get your head down, think about catching a ball. They're going to kick to you early, and they did. It went behind. I caught it, back around my shoulder, and I've turned around off. So I run like 40 metres. I think I've actually got a friend of mine, when Wembley got pulled down, someone had bought a lot of all the pictures they hung around Wembley, and there's a picture of me getting tackled by Gary Conley, I think Phil Clark's in there, and it's that first run. So I've run all that way, and obviously it was May, but we weren't used to it being warm. I'm totally dry in my mouth, but it felt all my throat was, and I didn't shake that off for the rest of the game. We're just totally gone. It's just like as if we were playing in 50 degrees. But Ellery were great. That said, get your head down, because you can lose it before you get there. Can't remember about meeting anyone or anything like that. Just kept your head down. Didn't know where the family was until after the end. But 17-year-old, great.
You had enough energy to score a try. Length of the field.
I can think of at least 10 people who want tickets from Featherstone anyway, so there's going to be no tickets left. I've got a cap already.
Could you talk about how important the Challenge Cup is to places like Castleford? So, if we move on to York and Featherstone getting to Wembley as well, we've been banging on for however long we've been banging on. The Championship and League One clubs need a pinnacle to play for. And whatever you decide is the future of the game and how it should look and who should be in it and who shouldn't and who brings to the party and who doesn't. A Wembley occasion for York, who haven't been there since the 1930s, and Featherstone, who have one of the great cup upsets in their armoury. The fact that those 2 sets of fans will get a share of the tickets, no matter whether we can have a full stadium or not, how good is that for the sport? And they're going to kick off at midday now before the Challenge Cup final at 3. And
I felt for the ones before afterwards. I think it can galvanise, because the thing that is huge about our game, and we forget a lot about it, is the tradition of it. How people used to, they'd go to the final regardless, the tradition of this. I know there's a million and one things more to do now. It's keeping that tradition alive. I hope it'll galvanise it won't the York supporters who made it at that time, but it will for these young kids to go, the occasion to go and watch this, and maybe they'll aspire to be there. I think whether we give, well, we can't, but whether we give 50,000 tickets away to kids to inspire them to, this is where we need to go, this is why I want to do that, and get them young, I think it'd be a huge thing. But brilliant for the, obviously I'm sure they'll have a fantastic day out, and it's even better it's before, because afterwards.
And you've got,
I think we were the only people there, weren't we? Apart from
by yeah, it was 7 o'clock at night. I think we nearly got locked in.
No, we did actually. Yeah.
But the fact that it's Catford and Featherstone have got there, so you know the Featherstone fans that are in there first will either be supporting Cass against St Helens, or they'll be
hang on a minute,
more likely wanting them to lose. But it adds to the whole occasion and the atmosphere. It gives you a reason to stay after your team's played. And I don't know about you, but the last few years we've been down there, you used to love playing Spot That Shirt. And there was a rerun the other night of the 1992 Test match in Melbourne, and you're seeing Hunslet shirts and Oldham shirts and 8,000 fans there, and being part of something that for whatever reason we've lost at the moment, that hopefully come back. But Wembley was that, I'll wander down Wembley Way and we'll pick out London Broncos and Workington and Whitehaven, and we've lost that, I reckon, because it's become a Super League game by another name with a trophy at it, and there haven't been enough teams that have wanted to be there or fans wanted to be there if their team wasn't. But if you add in the mix Featherstone and York, the whole occasion goes up a level.
I think clubs like that always seem to make it better for me, whatever they are. And that there might not be 20,000 of them, but you can guarantee that they'll be enjoying it more than anyone else. I remember playing first time against Wigan and talking to some of the Leeds fans who obviously had a great day and we didn't win. But we're almost looking at the Wigan fans who, because they'd been there for the last 9 years, it was just part of what they did. But
and it was the pressure to deliver rather than the enjoyment of being there.
They didn't seem to enjoy it. The Leeds fans were looking at them in the buses going, look at these, they've won. Look at us. But because Leeds haven't been there since 1978, but those groups. And I think that's why we need to encourage more of it. That, you know, I never went. The first time I went to Wembley, I played in it. I always give it to my dad, so I'm saying it again. He'd go with his mates when they were really young, and he said, right, we're going to go on the trip next year. Anyway, it got cancelled, so we didn't go. And I'm 34. Next thing, I'm playing. I took him. But yeah, I think it should be encouraged. And obviously, I know it's not going to be a full stadium as the tickets, but we need to think about how we do it. There was some really good stuff. When I was coaching at Junior Celtic, where there was almost a cashback offer to the clubs. It was brilliant, and we did it every year. It was fantastic.
Now, when you're doing these press conferences on Zoom, and you know, I'm very much the low end of the totem pole. Everyone's asked all the interesting questions, so you have to go a bit, left field, so to speak. So I asked the representatives from Castleford before their final with St Helens, not about that game, but whether any of the Fev fans who were there for the 1895 Cup final against York beforehand would be supporting their brothers from across the Wakefield district.
You're in the big final, but before that, you've got your local rivals Featherstone in action. You're hoping a few Rovers fans stick around and support Cass. Obviously, be nice of them to support their local side, wouldn't it?
I'm not sure if you know many Fev fans, but I can't see that happening. Do you know what, though? It should be a cracking game, York and Fev. So it's really interesting that they're doing that. And then when crowds finally open up and it becomes a real thing, hopefully in the future, that we can get full crowds and they add to the atmosphere even better. So obviously we've got Junior, who we spent a lot of time playing with, playing for Featherstone at the moment, playing outstandingly well. So obviously probably won't be watching much of it, but I'd be excited to watch it back after.
You know more about Fev than most, and surely those fans will remember the job you did there and want to cheer your side on to victory, won't they?
yeah, I'm not sure about that. I think, they've always been pretty good with me, the Fev fans, since I left. I mean, they always tell me they hate Cass, but they like me. So who knows? There's a great rivalry there. I'm not sure they'll be supporting us, but I'd just like to wish them all the best. I think they've done a great job getting there this year, and they'll be big favourites, I would think, against Charlton. I'm from Newcastle, where Mal really, he's very well respected there. And to be honest, I didn't know he was English or from Cass until I came to Cass. I seen his name on one of the benches down at Carlton Lane, and couldn't believe my eyes. So I remember messaging Piali and asking him, "Is this the same Mal really who, is from Newcastle?" And Piali texted me and said it was. So yeah, that was the day I found out he was English and from Cass.
Is there a similarity between Newcastle and Castle then in terms of the clubs and how important they are to the fans?
Yeah, man, in Newcastle, we're just they call us a steel city there. A blue collar town, one town team. And when you talk about Mal, really, you come through a kid learning a quote where the club's based on, and it's be the player that others want to play with, and I hold Mal up there, with the utmost respect, because he gets spoken a lot back home, and I don't know, it's just weird to find out he's from Cass, and I end up at Cass, and I talk to my brother who's at Saints now about him, and yeah, I get pretty emotional talking about him because he just means so much to us Nova Cassians back home, and what he's done for the club back there.
Peter Matautia there with a story where he didn't know that Mal really was from Castleford. Anyway, back to Wembley, and here's some reaction from after the finals. In a moment, you'll hear from Christian Wolff and also from Darryl Powell after Saints won the Challenge Cup. It was a strange afternoon for me because I saw my nephew. He was sat in front of the press box. It was great. I managed to get him a Castleford flag. That was good. He's 8 years old, something like that. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. He's seen his team at Wembley. I'm 41. When am I going to get to see my team there? And also, in the first game, I got to see my cousin, well, kind of cousin, relation, play for Fev. How exciting is that? They beat York in the 1895 Cup final, and his reaction from both coaches, James Ford for the beaten City Knights and temporary coach for the day, thanks to the COVID. It's not James Webster, but Paul March.
I found out on Thursday night that I'd be leading the team out and taking charge. Obviously, I've been off with COVID myself and come out of isolation on Thursday. So I haven't been around any players since then. But it's just an honour. Obviously, a famous club like Featherstone leading them out at Wembley, it's what dreams are made of. So, I'm really chuffed, not just for myself, but obviously my family and all the supporters and Mark Campbell, himself, the chairman.
Really proud. I spoke to the players. I said, I felt like they dealt with the disruption of the week with a load of maturity. They dealt with the disruption at the back end of the week. Obviously not having the usual detail that we would have in our prep. And I thought they dealt with that tremendously well. And listen, Featherstone are a good side. Yes, they had some disruption also, but they still had some absolutely first-class individuals out there who pose such a threat. And at times we unravelled a little bit, but we stuck together and fought really hard, tremendously hard actually. And we gave ourselves an opportunity to win the game. In the second half, we scored 2 tries. It's probably disappointing that we couldn't regather the kick-off. I think that killed our momentum a little bit. Featherstone pulled away, but then we re-rallied, stuck together. I'm not saying that we were going to win at the end, but 5 more minutes, it certainly would have been a real interesting finale.
Yeah, just before we talk about them youngsters, obviously, there's a lot of senior players who are back home and, gutted that they didn't come today, as well as coach. But yeah, the youngsters, I've been speaking to them ever since we settled from Featherstone, making sure we're all right. And big occasions mean that big time players come out, and Jacob Doyle first, taking 2 tries. He did well on his debut when we played Sheffield, but then had a motorbike accident which kept him out for a bit. So for him to come in and score 2 tries at Wembley is really good. Joe Summers, first professional debut. I don't think he's going to want to play anywhere else. When we go back to Fev and he plays at Fev, he'll be like, what's all the hype about? He's just made his professional debut at Wembley Stadium. So, I'm chuffed for him. obviously, I wanted to give him a bit more time, but the game was still in the balance in that 10 minutes, especially that bit of a dubious try at what he gave near end. So and Jake Sweeting, he's been out on loan. He's just bought his time, and obviously he's come in and. The plan wasn't to play him for 40 minutes, but he was doing all right in that heat, so we just left him out there.
Absolutely delighted. Yeah, it was outstanding. We had to do it tough there. We had to do it tough in terms of a bit of pressure we put on ourselves in the first half, and also losing a couple of key players, and in particular Tia. It was quite obvious he wasn't quite right in the first half, and as a tough little bugger, he tried to battle on, but we were certainly under a bit of duress there and had to do it tough. And if there's one group that you want to be involved with in that sort of situation when they've got to fight for things and be honest and be really tough, it's this group, and they've shown that plenty of times.
Oh, yeah. Obviously, really disappointed. I think the start to both halves I thought were really, really poor, and the second half. I mean, that try we conceded just after half time is. I mean, there's that many things that look like it was wrong with it, but. Anyway, that try, I just thought somebody had to go and catch that, and then the try that they scored down our left edge was a really soft try when Wellesby goes all the way across us, and we just I thought we played well, but we couldn't find our way through, and I thought they defended really well. So yeah, it was disappointing. I think the scoreline didn't really show the way the game went, but we had to start kicking off short, and we gave a lot of penalties away on the back of that. So yeah, disappointed, but just proud that we've got here. We had a real go today. I thought we physically put ourselves on the line, and they just got us. And defensively, I thought when we had good field position, they defended phenomenally well, and their scramble was great, and we lacked some composure and didn't really kick the ball. So yeah, disappointed in with quite a few bits of our game, particularly in the second half. I think going out, 6 points up and giving it away so quickly had a big part to play.
I haven't quite got to the bottom of it yet. I think the injection might have gone a little bit wrong. Actually, he had numbness in his arm, and you've seen a couple of times he went to throw a pass and just didn't have the power and. Sort of had no feeling in his arm. So look, as I said, I can't praise Tio enough. His toughness to stay out there and keep making tackles and keep sort of trying and scored the first try, and he had the problem really early in the piece and battled through it. And he made the right decision at half time. He felt like he was letting the group down, but he knew he couldn't do his job. So we're lucky we had Jack Wellesby on the bench, and as Jack's done plenty of times, he just, wherever we put him, he does an outstanding job, and he's an outstanding kid.
Let's talk more internationals now. Before those games back in the summer, whenever it was, we actually had Tom Coy, the England wheelchair head coach, on the show to tell us all about wheelchair rugby league and about the exciting new chairs they'll be playing in those matches against Wales and, of course, at France at the end of the season. We spoke to him, and also, at the end of the season, we spoke to Jamaica's coach, or part of the Jamaican coaching team, I should say, Jermaine Coleman, as they were looking forward to taking on Scotland in what turned to be a cracker at the Post Office Road. It's called Millennium Stadium now, isn't it, I think? And at the start of the year, way back, before we knew the World Cup wasn't happening, we spoke to a Canadian Raven, Krista Kent, who told her all about her journey into rugby league.
I was playing rugby union for 15 years before I discovered league. My partner at the time played for the Canada Wolverines, the men's side. And I never knew this world existed, this culture existed, to be quite honest. And I was very excited to learn about it and get involved because I fell in love with rugby now 15 years ago. And learning league, which is a similar sport but has its own amazing nuances, it just ignited a whole new fire inside me. And I was falling in love with the sport all over again. So I immediately got involved as soon as we had a foundation. I was there at the first practice. I'll be at the last that I can. And since then, like I said, I've had the privilege to travel with the Ravens, be a part of the Ontario Rugby League as their equipment manager. And I'm just excited for what the future holds, and to what capacity I can contribute. I'm looking forward to. I definitely have a fire inside me for it, even though I always have that for rugby. But just being able to represent this nation on that sort of platform is an incredible privilege and something I look forward to. We saw Canada come out in the last World Cup in 2017 and give it their best go. I think they smashed it with the type of program, the people that were involved and selected to go. It was a great showing. You know, that game against Papua New Guinea, it gave us hope for the future. I think that anyone that would underestimate Canada coming to this stage, to the England 2021 World Cup, would be sadly mistaken. I think we drew a great pool. It's going to be some amazing, healthy competition. And I'm excited to see what we can do. I'm very hopeful for gold. I think we have a great shot. And I just can't wait to prove it and show the world what we have to offer Rugby League, to show the world how much we've developed, what we've put in place to grow this sport, no matter what's going on in the world. You know, the World Cup is definitely a ray of hope for everyone, for a bit of normalcy when it comes to rugby, getting back together. I'm the president for my union club, and we only have a women's side. We're the only women's side independent across Ontario. I'm not sure about the rest of the country. So even that comes with its own struggles with recruitment and retention, especially in this unknown time. And I think the World Cup it is just something to look forward to. Knowing that it's going forward as well. I think it's a great opportunity to bring the world together, and I'll let everyone know that contact sport isn't going anywhere.
It's not just about the World Cup. It's not just about this group of players. It's about the next generation. It's about the legacy. It's about the role models that we can become within the community. And it's vital that we can show our face and get out. And we went to Carmanor School this week, and we had a fantastic time with some of the students at Carmanor. And hopefully we're inspiring that next generation. And if we can do that, then we put ourselves in good stead. And we come looking forward to the 2025 World Cup. And it's important that we have a new breed of player. As I said, we've got a number of players who will probably finish next year, and they'll be looking to try and finish at the pinnacle in terms of playing the World Cup. And we need to have that next generation of player going through. And it's all the time that we're spending in the community, all the work that Alex and Jason are doing to promote ourselves and our organisation and our brand is massively important.
It's violent and it's brutal, and there's a few people who, when they first see these people in wheelchairs crashing into each other, will wince and recoil, because there's something within us that thinks that people in wheelchairs need to be more protected or they're more vulnerable. But these guys just throw all of that into the wind. Their bravery is incredible, and anyone who's there on Saturday or catches a glimpse on TV will really feel how aggressive and how just like Rugby League it is. It's brilliant.
These new wheelchairs you've got, these are not the ones when you go to your local A&E and you've had a heavy night out and push you in. These are not the ones you're playing Rugby League in at the weekend, are they?
No, and they're not like a shopping cart either. They are Formula One Ferraris. It's difficult to describe unless you've played in a basic chair and then a top end one. But the feedback from the players, they've only had them for a couple of weeks now, but James Simpson was telling me he's getting on the end of plays that he wasn't before, which is right there's your 1% performance improvement. So they look great. They're sexy as hell as well. So that's important. Look good, play good, and it's just taken our program to another level. So incredibly grateful for the and the nearing that RGK have provided, it's just put us in a brilliant place, and we're just tracking really well for November, boys.
So Cadlands, of course, went on to win the League Leaders Shield. Cue those great picture of Ken Davey not looking too happy at the Magic weekend. St Helens won the grand final, but one of the teams in the men's world of Rugby League in 2021 were Hull Kingston Rovers, inspired by coach Tony Smith. They went on to one of the performances of the year, beating Smith's old side Warrington 19-0 in the playoffs. And here's how we thought that game went for both sides. Teddy says Steve Price's git of the year. That's a bit harsh, isn't it? I mean, it's not his fault. Oh, no, it is his fault because he was the coach, isn't it? So let's start with Warrington, because if we talk about Wigan and Leeds, we're going through an endless spiral of Leeds of great stuff, which we'll come to. But Hull KR are great, and we're not going to take anything away from Hull Kingston Rovers because they obviously were superb. Everyone loves Tony Smith. Everyone loves Jordan Abdul. Karsten loves Jimmy Kynhorst because he's German. Mikey Lewis is obviously brilliant.
Well, I think Mikey Lewis's touch of brilliance summed up the difference between the teams and the approach of the respective coaches. That Steve Price seems to play system. So he gets people in that can play a certain way that he wants to play, which is no risk predominantly, or low risk. Doesn't exactly encourage players to do anything unless they are in the right part of the field. Whereas Tony Smith, the beam on his face when Mikey Lewis saw what was available, backed himself.
Did he
and
play what he
executed.
saw with the old chip and chase?
All of the...
all of them?
All of them apply. But what he did was, Tony Smith encourages his guys to take risk, manageable risk, and there's another side to taking risk, and that is if you make a mistake, you've got to be good enough to prevent the opposition from capitalising on that. But what he wants to do is has a philosophy about how the game should be played. And in that one moment, and I think at 12-0, the pressure from 1955 hit all the Warrington players. But that 12-0 was, we've got to score at least twice, possibly 3 times. And at the moment, we don't know how to catch and pass a ball anymore. That shot of Lewis seeing what was available and pulling it off. And let's face it, if he hadn't got the bounce of the ball and caught it, he would have still been surrendering it in the right part of the field, or they could have got a drop out. He saw that there was something on, was it the second or third tackle of that set? And he went for it and it came off for him, and we all leapt out of our seats, and Tony Smith beamed and looked at... I wonder what Lee Breers thought as part of a coaching staff that he's now leaving, where he could see for the 3rd year running, they were playing at home in the playoffs, and the weight of expectation was weighing so heavily on those Warrington players that they started playing uncharacteristically, whereas Mikey Lewis, the young, fresh-faced, impudent halfback who's had to bide his time and learn his trade, but was thrown in and given the opportunity, is coached by a guy who every day in training will say, if you're going to do it to our advantage, not disadvantage. And then said, right, you've done it on the big stage and it's come off for you. I'm really, really pleased for you.
Because I am not a wordsmith, I'd call him mercurial, because that's what you call halfbacks. But you come up with a lot of words there. Gareth Walker in the paper today calling him a virtuoso effort. A throwback to halfbacks of years gone by. It's what people want to see. They want to see halfbacks have a go.
Deserved to win a game. It won a playoff game. It deserved to. But it again exemplified the difference in philosophy between Wigan and Warrington, and to a lesser extent Leeds, although Richard Agar clearly is of the Tony Smith school and has a philosophy about encouraging attacking rugby, and Tony Smith himself, and it's fantastic.
I think it'd be harsh if I said Hull KR have got some players who've been discarded elsewhere, but they have got players who've been discarded elsewhere, like the likes of Will Dagger, who had lots of hype at the start of their career, George King, who's gone from Warrington to Wakefield and now to Hull KR, which is probably a sideways move and actually an upwards move, as it turns out in the end. But they were superb. They were entertaining, and
their scrambling defence was magnificent. Which again, all of the teams that have got through this weekend have had commitment in their defence.
We were talking before we came on about sometimes it's difficult to get into a game if you haven't got an emotional involvement in it, which is why people might not have enjoyed Wigan versus Leeds on Thursday, because it's 2 teams no one likes. So there's no underdog in there, Obviously there is in a betting sense, but in a sense of, no one likes Wigan, no one likes Leeds. So you want to see a draw, can't have a draw, so it's rubbish. Whereas at least in this one, Warrington, we can all laugh at them because it's not their year again. Hull KR, unless you're from Hull, you can get behind because they are the underdogs and they play nice rugby league. The 1955 thing, is Darryl Powell the man to be able to break that? Because this seems to be a thing that's going to go on and on and on until they finally do.
I don't know, but I just think under Darryl Powell, Warrington will play a more attractive style of rugby, and if they are going to break this hoodoo, I think the shackles have got to come off. Now we can judge the Steve Price era because it's come to an end, and I think, you know, you look at where the team were when he arrived, where they are when he leaves, it's pretty much the same. I don't think he has taken them to another level, but you know, even listening to the Sky commentators, you know, some of the decisions they've made to buy people like Greg. I'll be honest, I could not understand Warrington's team selection. I don't know how you can necessarily go into a game where at some point you might need someone who can change it off the bench without Blake Austin. I just thought he had to be there. I don't understand how when Matty Ashton had played so well the week before that you would put him on the bench and then leave him to come on when he's cold in an atmosphere where the game has almost gone and expect him to turn it around. I would have started with him. He deserved a start. And if that meant, you know, Ratchford displacing somebody else, then I think that's what they should have done. You know, they didn't have a replacement hooker. They didn't have Danny Walker on the bench, which again has made a difference. You know, it gives you a little bit of variety when you can take Darryl Clark off and put somebody else on in that position who does it a little bit differently. I did not understand the Warrington team selection. And I don't think you can just say, oh, because Mike Cooper didn't play, that had a huge effect.
We should have got sent off the other week then.
So I think that came back to haunt Steve Price. He looked very conservative in the team that he chose. And I do think that this 1955 thing is going to haunt them because you have to have a certain mentality within the players to get over the fact that the people in the stadium start holding their breath because they're worried that yet again it's going to happen. And Stefan Ratchford, who's been brilliant this year, had arguably his worst game, his least influential game. Gareth Widdop, nominated as Man of Steel, could not put his stamp on the game. George Williams is another classic example of, you know, late in the season or relatively late in the season, we will buy someone who is available, we will put them straight in the team, but they haven't yet fully attuned to what you want out of that team. Didn't influence the game.
Do you think he's just dropped Austin because he's leaving?
Well, I think they've brought Williams in and they're investing in him for next year. So, but I just think when you get to the pointy end of the season,
You don't want to say business end.
No, it's contractually obliged to say. You have to have variety on the bench. Yeah. And the other thing I couldn't, you know, just relating it back to Wigan, who clearly we don't want to talk about because it's such a dour game, worst game ever in the history of rugby league. Their only method of changing the way they played was to bring on Kai Pearce-Paul, because he's different to everything else that they've got, and he has got a fabulous offload game and the ability to break down a defence that people won't give a lot of credit for, but Leeds' defence was pretty good that night. You needed something different, but Pearce-Paul didn't come on until something like the 61st minute.
Sean Wayne's a fan of his, isn't he? I think. I think I saw the quote. I was invited. I wasn't in the England press thing this week because I was working, so I missed it. But I saw the stories coming out of it. Like, you know, he's impressed by Kai Pearce-Paul. So maybe he'll be in the World Cup next year. Maybe in the England
I think he'll be England night.
I think the internationals this year.
But I genuinely think that if you are going to win a semi-final or a playoff game and it's moving away from you, you have to put somebody on that is going to change it. For Leeds, and again, we're not talking about the worst game that's ever been played. Michalewski coming off the bench had a massive difference, particularly in his second spell. He got them going forward, and it was just different to the mix that they had out there at the time. And for me, Wigan and Warrington got what they deserved on the basis of the fact that they weren't adventurous enough to go any further.
Lots of people on social media getting very upset after the New Year's Honours list came out that Kevin Sinfield wasn't on there. They probably didn't nominate him for a start, and I think you have to have so long between you've had one honour before you can get another. He'll get his knighthood in the end. He's in rugby union now, it's all right. But Phil was there throughout the whole thing, I mean, you can read about that in one of the back issues of 4020 magazine. Me, I just got up at 5 o'clock to see him wander through my village. I mean, he looked more awake than I did as he was running, and I was just stood there. We're always learning new things on 4020 TV. Not how to do us hair, though. Look at that, it's dreadful. One for the podcast listeners. And it was a great experience to go watch Masters Rugby League for the first time as the Canadians, the Canadian Grizzlies, came over for a mini tour, unlike their Australian and Kiwi counterparts in the World Cup. And here is the story of their day at Hunslet's John Charles Stadium. Nicholas, you're back in the country. You've just played a game of rugby. How are you feeling?
I feel fantastic. The fact that we're able to be back here, first of all. Last time I was here was 2019, and I took part in the Masters Festival at Eastmore. Was able to play for the host Eastmore Dragons and also Metley. So when I went back home and I told the boys all about it, it helped us with recruiting. And then the more we played, the more we got known, the more people wanted to come out and join us. So the more people came and saw us, older guys getting fit, having fun, they they wanted to take part. So we've actually got guys on our team today who saw us for the first time in July, and they enjoyed what they saw so much they signed up that very day. Now they're representing Canada. One of our guys, when he was told he could represent the country, burst into tears with pride. So we're all really glad to be here. It was a challenge planning it because obviously COVID changed the rules all the time, but we hope to do this again in the future. We're looking forward to the next match against Crossfield, and then against England, Wales and Ireland on November the 21st down at Lee East Stadium. That will be one heck of a challenge, but we'll go back to Canada undefeated thanks to the Masters rules where every game ends in a scoreless draw officially.
But, Canada have come over, the Australian and New Zealand men and women for the full World Cup. They haven't come, you've made the trip, you're braver than them.
Well, yeah, I suppose in that sense we are the most exotic team, if that could be applied to us. But we were disappointed that it wasn't going to be the full Masters Festival, and obviously our plans were originally to come and take part cheering on the Canada Ravens and watching some of the other matches as well. But when that was cancelled, we were rather surprised that the Masters Festival was still going to continue. So we talked about it and we were like, well, is there any guarantee that things are going to happen next year? We're not sure. Let's take the chance right now and do it today. Do it this year. So it's been a lot of work. There's been 6 of us on the committee planning and replanning and booking, and then dealing with the cancellations, and then rebooking, and it was always a moving target. But when we talked amongst ourselves, we said, let's make it happen this year. And we'll be able to say later on, we took part in the inaugural International Masters Festival. So they'll never be able to take that away from us.
I'm trying to think of all the great Canadian captains in the history of sport. And I can only think of Wayne Gretzky because he's the only Canadian anyone can think of. But you're up there now, you've captained Canada today. How proud are you to have achieved that today out on the field?
I never thought of it that way as being the first captain. I see the other guys on the team who have much more knowledge of the game, much more history in the game itself. They know they know more about the sport. They've forgotten more than I'll ever know. And so for them to select me to be the captain of the first game was a great honor. And I believe there's other guys on the team who are much more deserving. So it was a humbling experience to be offered.
You played the whole game, didn't you?
Yeah. I played a full game Friday night as well.
How do you do it?
Never ever put any weight on him or anything like that. I used to do a lot of running. I've always been able to run. I've got quite a slow heartbeat, naturally, not slowing down. I've always been able to run long distances and things like that. And that must help.
80 years old, when did you first start playing rugby league?
Played at school, but I didn't play until I was into my middle to late 20s because I got married, having a family, walked past the training pitch. All my friends played, they said, come and have a game of touch and pass, and it went. Finished up on the player and committee a piece. I was never any real good. I played second team rugby.
And now you're playing, well, I guess a bunch of Canadians who've come over. What's it like playing Masters rugby at the age of 80? I guess you prove that anyone can play at any age.
Yeah, if you look after yourself, and a lot of it is people think old and they get old. You know what I'm saying? If there's no way I'm going to sit in a chair and vegetate, I'm going to do something that I enjoy as long as I can.
What's it like after a game? Many aches or pains today?
Yeah, odd ones, but you see, we don't get knocked about with tags, do we? That helps. You get the odd bump or two and sometimes pull hamstring or tweak or something like that.
And any thoughts on retirement?
No way. No way. When I got to 60, yellow shirt, I played in my 60s, Masters. I went to watch a game, the first scene they ever played, and one of my friends ran off the field and says, you can play this game, Brian. So next game I was in, and I love it. And you probably heard me say to is it Phil Kaplan, the banter in the dressing room, on the field, the back chat on the field, when players are calling me names from the other side, I know I'm doing my job.
Come on, lads, get in. Lads, thanks for coming and thanks for the game. Really enjoyed the game. For the Grizzlies, thanks for coming over and making it a great day for us. So, 3 cheers for the Grizzlies. Hip! Hey! Hip! Hey! Hip! Hey! 3 cheers for the dads and lads. Hip! Hip! Hey! Hip! Hip! Hey! Hip! Hip! Hey! 1 for the ref. Well done, boys. Thank you.
Rob Hicks, he's hung up the whistle. Full time anyway. We reckon they'll tempt him back for the World Cup or something. Might run out of referees, you never know, do you? But he joined us in the studio to talk about many things in his new role at the Rugby Football League. Can't you say Red Hall now, because they've sold it, haven't they? At the offices at the somewhere in Manchester. Anyway, he joined us and we spoke about abuse, because there's too much of it going on in the game these days.
Difficult time, because you mentioned safeguarding, compliance. Whether or not the statistics back it up or not, there seems to be an issue with touchline behaviour, particularly in the community game. I think it does spill over into the professional game as well. But we saw the Huddersfield Referee Society take a stance the other week. We've heard, and you might say quite rightly, the fact that you hear about it more doesn't necessarily mean there is more of it. It just means that you hear about it more. Issues on touchlines involving junior teams. How do you stop that? And is that part of the brief that you'll be inheriting?
Yeah, Matt, well, I think if I was to say that, I think the 3 challenges or opportunities for the sport in the next 12, 24 months in my area of the sport are unacceptable language and behaviour, and really driving that agenda within our sport. And I think that's a real good opportunity for us to become a diverse, inclusive sport. We've got some great products in that area, and we need to become better in all those areas. Player safety is always a big issue within sport, especially in a contact sport. And I think directly answering your question, adult behaviour and fan behaviour, it is something that's got to change, and it's got to change for the better. And social media doesn't help, Brexit doesn't help, all these other things that come into it. You can't immure yourself from the society that you live in. Let's be
pretty
blunt.
much divided.
However, we can say what's right and wrong in our sport and what we will accept, and we now have to get that right.
And does that involve greater sanction?
Possibly. I don't think sanction's just the only thing that can be done. I think greater education. And by greater sanction, I don't necessarily mean larger fines, perhaps more serious sanctions, different solutions. I think some of this has to be different solutions.
Clearly a tannoy announcement that is now laughed at is probably not sufficient to deal with a growing issue.
Probably not, but it's one of a number of measures you can take. I would say that tannoy announcement goes out, everybody starts going, way, and it drowns it out, and then it does die down. So in a way, the tannoy announcement works.
I'm not convinced of that. I think you've got a bit more work to do.
No, but you know, we've got to get people in the room and make some decisions on it.
I mean, can you have an impact on stewarding, for example? Because again, what a steward can, can't, won't, and is legally allowed to do has changed. The level of stewarding, particularly whether it's on a community touchline or at a professional game, seems to be less, as in there are less people involved in and around the stadium. There isn't a police presence at Super League anymore, which we don't want, but sometimes having it there is a deterrent in itself. Is all that come under your remit?
Yes. So we have got meetings with ground safety officers. There is a group, the ground safety officers group. We're meeting with them later in the year to plan for next year. We're meeting with the chief execs of clubs. I mean, ultimately, this isn't an area that the RFL can resolve on its own. No. It's down to its clubs, its players, its volunteers to get in a room and come up with some solutions. I don't profess to have all the answers. I just know that the reality is that adult behaviour post-lockdown is at an all-time low. And that's not just in rugby league, it's in horse racing, it's in football. I get married later this year. The venue I was at told me that no one can drink anymore and that they're either all fighting or all falling over and getting injured. So perhaps it's just a societal thing that we're just not used to going out anymore. So I hope that will change. We'll do our best to make it change, but we don't have all the answers, and it's not down to the governing body to come up with all those answers, because the clubs deliver weekly events and they are in charge of their own grounds, they have their own businesses, and so we can't come up with something that they say just doesn't work. We have to make sure it does
cost too much, because they've got books to balance in a very difficult economic time as well. So you could say we need to have 7,000.
No, I accept that, but our clubs work extremely hard. Our clubs work extremely hard to make game day a good experience. They're not suddenly sitting on their hands and saying, we're not bothered about this. They know it's an issue and they want to do things better, and have probably worked harder in the last 18 months to deliver behind closed doors games than they've ever worked. And I know that from speaking to some of the most overworked and underpaid people at those clubs that just say, we're trying our best.
Presumably you've got the same issue with social media as well, because if the social media companies won't regulate in the way that most people think that they should, when people are saying or posting things that actually you think should be taken down. It's not a lot you can do to an individual and or somebody who professes to support a particular club that is putting out stuff that ideally you wouldn't want out there.
No, sadly not.
But is that
and
an
we have to work?
you'll look at?
We will, and we'll have to look at how we engage on those mediums. We also have to think about pressuring government in the right way, and that's another area that I have responsibility for, to regulate those areas, and government are on board, aren't they? We're not alone, are we? We're not alone. It's social media. But it's a fantastic thing.
All the things you're talking about don't have a simple solution. No. They're all interlinked, and
correct.
A lot of it is outside of your control.
And that's why it's so good a role to take on, because if everything was so easy to deal with, then we wouldn't need anybody in any jobs. But actually, the reason it's a complicated area, and it needs someone to have a dedicated, open mind to how we change that, and perhaps a fresh look at that. But social media is a great thing.
The end of the season is always the time when you start thinking about those who won't be playing the season afterwards. And two from Castleford announced their retirements, with Michael Shenton eventually ending up in a role at Hull FC behind a desk, and Grant Millington going back home to Australia. And we asked them both some searching questions as they announced their retirement from Rugby League.
Terry Matson took us on a La Manga trip when he not the first year he got the job, and a couple of years into it, and England football have been training there. It's a big golf resort. There's obviously amazing football pitches, but Michael Korkidis, it was his birthday, and this was early January, pre-season, getting ready for the season. And he said, "It's my birthday." It's like, "All right, Terry's just signed me from Salford. He'll let us have a few beers." There was only one pub on site. He said, "Right, let's all go down." I've okayed it with Terry, but he didn't okay it. And then Terry's walked down with the coaching team for a game of pool and seen us all having a few beers. He didn't say a word to us, and we thought, that's all right then. We got woke up at 2 a.m. to go and do the biggest hills you've ever seen, and absolutely smashed us. You think, wow. I just remember Ryan McGoldrick going on protest at a lamppost, just saying, "No, not doing it, ridiculous." Luke Down throwing up in the bushes. And you think that were really tough. I think, why is he doing this to us? But you look back now and you think, that was quite funny, actually. How would you handle it if you were a coach and things like that? So there's areas where, I think I won't miss that, but really, I think I'll miss it all. I think I'll miss all the hard stuff we had to do, all the good stuff, obviously the team bonding and the getting ready for matches, playing matches. It'll be a big miss, but even, I suppose, promotions and media work, it's something that sometimes as a player, it's not something you ideally want to do. You just want to have your own time or go be with your mates or your family. But at the end of the day, it's part of a pretty good job. And as we players, we have it pretty as hard as the game of rugby league is. It's a pretty good job.
Thanks, Grant, for speaking to us. Lots of positivity and everything. What aren't you going to miss about playing rugby league when you finally retire?
Mate, injuries, but to be fair, there's not much, We're so blessed. We're so lucky. I'm home by 2, 3 o'clock at the latest. I get to see my kids for a couple of hours every day. Probably I'll be happy to have my weekends back. When not so much here because all my mates play rugby, but back home when your mates are out going to the pub, going for dinner, doing this or this and that, you've been able to say, "Oh, unfortunately, I can't do that because I'll be playing on the weekend or training or whatever." So I'll probably enjoy having my weekends back. But other than that, there's not much that I dislike about it. We've thrown it around a couple of times. If you won the lotto, would you call it a day? And I probably wouldn't. I'd probably still be playing. So I just enjoy it. I've loved it since I was a kid, and I'll probably be doing it for as long as the body can hold out for.
You said you didn't expect to be here for so long. Did you ever expect to be playing in the halfbacks in Super League?
Definitely not. I'm glad someone mentioned that. No, definitely not. Look, I started as an outside back. I started as a winger, believe it or not, when I was younger. And then as I got bigger, I just kept moving into the middle. So it's nice to slowly move back out a little bit every now and then. But no, definitely not. But, you know, it's something I can throw about with my mates at the pub when I'm back home.
We saw lots of players, you know, great players retire at the end of last season, weren't able to say goodbye to the fans. How important will that be that you will get that chance at the jungle in front of the ravenous Castleford fans to say your final goodbyes?
Yes, it's definitely something that would have been disappointing to finish on if I finished last year. I feel sorry for a lot of the blokes who didn't get the goodbye that they deserved. You know, the fans here, I've said it before, have been great to me, and I've loved every minute of playing in front of them. So to get that final goodbye will be pretty important, and probably one that'll get the emotions running, I think.
Obviously, you played in the grand final, Challenge Cup finals, you lifted the League Leaders Shield. Is there any one particular moment that stands out, good or bad, in the whole tenure here at Castleford?
No, it's hard. We've had plenty of great games, plenty of close games. You know, that Saints game here, Benny Roberts kicked that goal, that field goal. The Golden Point Gaelic kicked Saints again here. A couple of close games here against Wigan. Wigan semi-final in for the Cup. I might have been the quarter-final for the Challenge Cup in 2014. There's been loads of games that I'll remember, and I've got to go in search of so I can keep to show my son when he's older, because the memories we've created on the pitch here have been fantastic. But mate, as a whole, it's back in my career here and my time here so fondly, and it's definitely one that I'll never forget.
Final one, back to negativity. Any teammates you'll be glad to see the back of when you're back home in Australia?
No, not really. Oh, you know, probably if you asked me in the early days, Adam Milner. He was a pest. He was into me constantly, but we've sorted out our differences. So, mate, no, you grow to love it all. You know, the banter when the banter here is probably a bit more harsh from where I come from, so it took a bit of time to adjust to that. But no, there's no one honestly in my career that I've played with or that I wouldn't stop and have a beer with at the end of the day when we're old men meeting up. So no, I've been pretty lucky in that way.
Far too positive a person, Grant. Thanks for speaking to us, and enjoy the rest of your career here at the Tigers.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate it.
Now, one thing I did miss a lot in 2020, and certainly in 2021, because I never seemed to get the chance, was post-match chats with Danica Preem. You know, our mate, plays for the Leeds Rhinos, used to play for England. I mean, we spent a whole 2 hours with her in the studio a couple of weeks ago, which is well worth watching if you didn't see this. But earlier in the year, she and Sandy Dominguez Shipley, that Canadian woman, she's a Leeds Rhino season ticket holder now. They joined us in the studio to talk about the Canadian Cooperative Championship thing, which I've forgotten the name of, but you'll be able to find it online. And anyway, I asked Danica about boxing because she was supposed to have a fight with Rhiannon Marshall, but it got called off thanks to COVID. So at least one positive's come of all this. Have Leeds got a special Magic Weekend kit filled? You know,
I would hope.
Because I know Salford have got.
But the annoying,
because we're all excited about Magic Weekend, which is in 2 weeks, and I'm not going.
Yeah, just from again that Leeds point of view, the annoying thing is Josh Warrington is fighting at Headingley on the same night that Leeds are playing Hull.
No way.
Magic, which again they're not arranged at the same time. Different sport.
Yeah.
But it is a shame, I think, that
you're kind of asking because you might have fans who are
there
both sports.
There would have been loads of Rhinos fans at that boxing event.
So there's a lot. I went to have a look at tickets purely out of interest rather than, and there's quite a few sections sold out already.
Wow.
How's your boxing career? Is that
oh my God.
Absolutely non-existent. Never ever to come back again.
Good.
Nor do I ever want it to. Do you know what? I remember just after Robert got diagnosed with it, and Chev and I were upstairs at Kirkstall talking about it, and we were laughing because I am, despite being a prop, despite being quite forward, maybe
aggressive in nature.
I'm not aggressive.
Scary.
I'm not aggressive or scary.
That's why Sandy's there.
I've never ever thrown a punch in my life on the pitch when there's been fights. I don't think I could.
She's a butterfly.
I think you could.
But like when me and Sheva
I
talk
think
about
you
it,
could hold somebody up by their collar in a very threatening
I
manner.
can hold
Should we
them
try? Should we try?
I just
Should
let
we
you do it.
try?
No, I couldn't. I physically couldn't do it. Like I'm not. I don't
If somebody
have that.
picked on your mate, if Danielle was on the floor being pummeled,
You would.
I'd push them off. I'd push them off, but
Oh,
I'd never
that great
punch
clip
them.
of you pushing someone the other side.
Yeah, my weight. That was Featherstone. Well, yeah, that old clip. Exactly. I don't even. My feedback from the World Cup was I'm not aggressive. But anyway, I remember me and Chev were upstairs talking about it. Brett Delaney was coming up and Brett Delaney was giving all this, blah, 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 and I'm just like, I don't want to. And Rob just said to me, who are you fighting? And I was like, oh, Reed. And he went, where's she from? And I was like, Cass. And he just laughed at me. He laughed at me in the face. And I was like, hey, I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for you. And he was like, yeah, unlucky.
Yeah. Cass people.
Cheers, pal.
Leeds metropolitan people. You know, you've got hummus and stuff.
Yeah.
We wish her well in her future endeavours on the telly. And hopefully she doesn't forget us when she's rich and famous. Well, one of those maybe. Another player hanging up the boots this year after a stellar career both at club and international level was Andrea Dobson, who didn't have the fairy tale finish in their grand final, Shield final against Huddersfield. It was the Giants who went on to win in a surprise result against Featherstone, but we spoke to one of the modern day legends after the game.
In practice we're the better team. I think we are the better team and we just let ourselves down with a little bit of composure, completion of sets. We just didn't have that finish pass, that last push, and going to sleep a couple of times in D and letting them get a roll and didn't help us. So yeah, I never thought we'd lose, to be honest. Even with a minute to go when we had that set, I just thought we'd pinch it. But it is what it is. Credit to them, where they've come from the start of the season to now. And yeah, we're tough game.
Yeah, they didn't seem to give you any territory at all in that first half.
No, nothing at all. And I think the energy was high from them, and probably had more energy than us, especially around the rock and ABC and around there. They were just flying out and putting pressure on us. So again, credit to them. They kind of took our game plan a little bit away, just with the pressure and the energy that they had. So yeah.
I mean, it's great for us in the stands watching an entertaining game, but you'd rather just win with a scrappy drop goal or whatever, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I said, at no point did I think we'd win. We'd lose until the kind of final hooter went in. Yeah, what a crowd as well for a Shield final. What a crowd, and for them, a 2-point game is probably a lot better spectacle than a big score. But yeah, not really happy to be on the wrong side of it, but it is what it is.
Are you happy to end while you still can do it out there? You're going on your own terms rather than being pushed out?
Yeah, definitely. I didn't want to get an injury than go and not play or just do that couple of years too much. And I think I've said it before, the standard of the teams and the standard of the players coming through are really high, which is where it should be. And it takes me a lot longer to recover. I'm not as quick or as fit or as whatever as I used to be, so I'd rather finish now and kind of pull my own plug than get told I'm not good enough anymore, sort of thing. So yeah.
I ended up doing the co-commentary on that game. I don't think anyone at our league realises yet. I don't know if I'll be allowed back in 2022. If Channel 4 are watching now, by the way, look at this studio. It's amazing what you can get, isn't it, these days? We end with the women's game, mainly because I wasn't at the men's grand final. I was at the Wakefield Trinity Ladies Awards do. I wasn't at Old Trafford this year. And again, there's no need for me to be at these games sometimes. So I don't go. I don't want to clog up the press box, especially not at Old Trafford where there's not much leg room. So I might have to think about it for the World Cup final. But we end with winners. And the team of the year were the St Helens women, who swept all before them in the women's game. We heard them earlier talk about winning the Challenge Cup semi-final. They won the League Leaders' Shield. They won the final against York. And then they went on and beat Leeds at Henley in the women's grand final in a dominant performance. And after chasing them down the tunnel, it's not too far from the truth, that. Here's a pair of winners. It's Jodie Cunningham again. You can't get rid of her, the Woman of Steel. And the player of the match, Chantel Crowell. I remember at York, after the semi-final, you were really excited. You've now won the Challenge Cup, League Leaders' Shield, Woman of Steel Award, and the Super League title.
Yes, you have.
You didn't want the player of the match. You could have got the player of the match as well. That'd be another thing.
You think she'd have let me have it, wouldn't you?
Every one of them are my player of the match.
Shut up. Honestly, it's just a dream. It's a dream, and we've worked so hard as a team, haven't we? We've put so much hard work in. last year when the season got called off, like pre-season, we really grafted and we knew that hard work would come off in games like today when we're playing a quality team like Leeds, and it worked.
Yeah,
and you know what? It just felt so good.
To nil them is even better, sweeter.
I don't want to get in trouble by not letting you go in there, so I'll ask you one final question between the pair of you. How do you sum up 2021 and how do you get better in 2022?
We keep working hard, we keep going at it, you know, and we keep progressing on our skill and our work level and our fitness, and you know, and the way we work for each other on the pitch, if we continue to do it like we did today, there's going to be bigger and better things for us.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we go again, we do the treble again, that's what we do, and you know, I think that's the joy of the women's game, like people finally starting to see it. You know, it was like this hidden secret that, you know, there was always quality about, but nobody got to see it. And days like today, you know, record crowd, live on Sky, like people are going to see this and more people are going to get interested. The standards are going to raise, and it's just, the women's rugby league is just going to open up, but Saints have got a long way to go to.
Oh, yes.
So that was bits of 2021. It's 2022 now, and who knows what we'll be talking about in a year's time. Hopefully England will have swept all before them in the World Cups, men's, women's, wheelchair and PDRL. I mean, you can hope. You can have a dream, haven't you? That's what Captain Sensible said. Maybe wait if you will make it to Wembley. Maybe I'll get a decent haircut. Who knows? But thank you very much for joining us in 2021. Your support is always, what's the word? Welcomed. Yeah. Keep with us. Hopefully some fun to be had over the next 12 months, and you'll see it all here and listen to it all and read about it all at 4020. Adios.
De toute façon, une finale, c'est fait pour la gagner. Donc après, de marquer l'histoire ou pas, une finale, on la joue pour la gagner. Donc si on la gagne, ça marquera. Ça serait une belle histoire pour le rugby à 13 français, oui.
C'est bon pour moi.
Question, monsieur?
C'est bon, merci.
Pour moi, c'est bon. Parfait,
merci.
merci.
On va rajouter une alors. Non, c'était pour laisser du temps à tout le monde, pardon. Non, mais
vas-y.
Julien, pardon, tu étais parti, excuse-moi, désolé. Non, revenir aussi sur cette affiche, c'est les deux équipes qui ont dominé la saison, c'est à la fois une affiche logique.
Merci. Bon, cette fois?
Non, j'ai une question. Désolé, je vais partir encore 5 minutes. Juste depuis tes débuts en Première Ligue, est-ce que tu as senti que le regard avait